Yes.
Yeah, there we
Hi.
go.
Good.
Hi, let me get my water.
Yeah.
Where did I put it? Oh, there it is. Okay, here we are.
Hi. It's so great to be
Hi.
connecting with you.
Yeah.
How fun.
You
So
turn-
thanks for doing this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, so I have plenty of questions.
Great. Do you want me to channel?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I would. Maybe not at the beginning. I have a couple of questions for you, and then
Sure.
maybe once we get into the structure of the universe and stuff.
Okay, okay.
Cool. So, what made you decide to be a channel?
I didn't really decide. It just sort of started happening to me.
Okay.
So I was very much into channeling, but I never saw it as something that I would do. And then I was doing Reiki on somebody, and my hands started to move by themselves. Like I was just watching them move like this.
Okay.
And then my head started to go like this. And then I started making these whispery sounds like, and all of this is just happening. And I'm going, oh, maybe I'm going to channel. So that was in January of 2010 was the first, or maybe February, was the first moment that I thought maybe this is something I'm going to do. But back then, there weren't a lot of people teaching it. I didn't even know of more than 2 people who were channeling. So I just kept doing what I was doing. And then in March, I had this huge download happen in the middle of the night where I was asleep and I was dreaming. And in the dream, I was talking to a guy that I knew from the Abraham Hicks community. And I turned to him and I said, I understand now about the other beings. And I woke up from that dream and I started receiving energy through the top of my head. And it was complete ecstasy. It was like my body was almost lifted off the bed. Because my back was arched, because I was in so much ecstasy, because this energy was like nothing I've ever felt before or since. And I just was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, more please, more please, more please. And then I eventually had the thought of the dream, and I thought, what does this have to do with that dream? And then I thought, what does this have to do with aliens? And as soon as I thought the word aliens, I got a huge surge that was bigger than the ones I was getting. So then I just started thinking the word alien over and over again. And then I started to talk to them, ask questions. If the answer was yes, I'd get a surge of energy. If the answer was no, I'd get nothing. So that's how it all started.
That's awesome.
And I was like already a meditator daily for 10 years. So all I wanted to do when I meditated was get back that feeling that I had. So I would go from meditating an hour a day to meditating 2.5 hours a day. And I could get to the point where I could sense energy and feel it running through my body. And I can still, if I just sit here and I go, I have goosebumps across my whole body. It's like they're all the way down my legs. So that's basically what I was able to get. It was like a 1/1,000,000th of what I was feeling that night, But still, I would sometimes be in these meditations, and I would be trying to access like healing energy because I had some issues with my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I would start to convulse like I was going to throw up, like what I call dry heaves. I think some people call it retching,
Right.
where it's like you go through the motions of throwing up without throwing up.
Wow, that's powerful.
Had that happening. So that happened at an Abraham workshop. So I'm sitting there and I'm like really tuning into the energy that Esther's bringing through, and I liked feeling it more so than just listening to it. So that was what wound up happening, and I was like, well, that was weird. And I turned to my friend. I said, I'm sorry if I was a distraction. I didn't mean to be. She said, you should talk to Abraham about that. But it was a 2-day seminar, and we were staying in a hotel. So in between the day 1 and 2, we went to my friend's hotel room. There were 4 or 5 women there with me, and I was just like going through the motions of channeling, like all the movements. And it was very strainy, like, like this kind of. It was not pretty. And there was no sound, no words, no nothing. So they're all like, okay, you need to ask Abraham. And I was like, I know. So the next day I'm sitting there. It's the second half of day 2. I'm like, I've got like less than 2 hours left with Abraham to get this question in. And I'm sitting there, my hand just raises itself, like slowly. I just watch it do this. And then by the time it's like this, the person who's in the hot seat gets out. Of course, they call on me. I get goosebumps all up and down my body. Nice. I go and sit there and I ask them, what's going on with me? Like, what's happening? What is this? Am I trying too hard? And they said, no, you're going to do this. They said, you're going to do what Esther's doing. They don't call it channeling. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't expect that answer. And so then I just practiced sitting and doing this and feeling like I would just have to sit. The energies would take over my body and I would feel them, and it would be kind of cool to know that something was happening, but no words coming out was really frustrating. Yeah. So eventually, after like 4 weeks of practicing or something like that, I don't even remember how long it was. And this will be 10 years in November ago that I spoke for the first time. And it was the creators. And they said, we are here for you. And then I always channeled with another person. I never did it by myself.
Okay.
So even if the other person was over the phone, it was like I felt like I had to have someone there asking questions.
Yeah.
And then I channeled the creators exclusively for the first 3 years, and then I started bringing in others too that I channeled. And about a year and a half after I started channeling was when I started to say to myself, okay, I can't always be relying on another person being here or being on the phone in order for me to channel. I want to start putting my channeling out there. So that's when I started doing the daily messages. That was summer of 2012. And so for 8 years, I've been putting out a daily message every day that I channel.
Right. Yeah, I'm a subscriber to your newsletter. I read the Arcturians messages every day. It's great. So who are the Arcturians and the Palladians?
Okay, so there's these star systems. So the Pleiadian star system is the Pleiades, or the 7 sisters. And you can see them in the night sky. I'm not sure exactly where they are in relationship to Orion's belt or anything like that. I've never been a huge like stargazer or astrology person, but or astronomy. But they're up there and out there, and you can see them. And then the Pleiadians are more about like healing and teaching, and they're like the ones who want to be ambassadors and go out and like spread the the message of, you know, spirituality across the galaxy. And they've always been like really outgoing. That's why so many people channel them. Arcturians, on the other hand, so they're in the constellation known as Bootes or something. It's Bootes. That's the constellation. And the Arcturus is a giant red, I want to say a red giant. It's a red giant, so it's bigger than our sun. And so Arcturus is not a planet. A lot of people think it's a planet. It's not. There are planets there that life, you know, sustain life, I'm sure. But the difference basically is that beings who incarnate in the Arcturian system go there specifically to develop their spirituality. So they want to learn how to teleport and time travel and telekinesis and all the T's. And then they also want to just merge more with Source and become spiritual masters. So there's a lot there. It's a lot of emphasis on the individual's spiritual process and awakening and coming to these higher and higher levels of consciousness. So it's always been a peaceful place. There's never been a war there. Whereas the Pleiadians had, you know, got involved in the Orion Wars and kind of like stuck their neck in where they shouldn't have at times. But the Arcturians have always been like kind of isolationist and just doing their own thing, kind of like a Tibetan monk. You know, you don't have Tibetan monks like knocking on your door and handing you a pamphlet, you know.
No.
They're like, we'll stay over here and we'll like hold the space for the entire human collective to have, you know, their spiritual awakenings.
Okay.
And so it's not until recently that you started really hearing from Arcturians. And I started channeling them about 4 years ago. And they were a group of beings that I sort of knew about. Now, there's not just one. So that's like a misconception that people have. They're like, the Arcturians refers to all of them. So if you think about it, there's third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh dimensional Arcturians, all in physical bodies, all in different dimensions. So they can't all be the same and be coming through the, you know, in the same way. And then you have the eighth dimension's a transitory dimension, so it's not really, you don't really hang out there. But the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th dimensions also have Arcturians because, well, I think at a certain point they stop identifying as Arcturians because 12th dimensional, you're in like full recognition that you're a universal being, that you're not really attached to even one galaxy. So even within the 9th dimension, which is where the Arcturians I channel come from, I'm sure there are several different Arcturian collectives. So yeah, a lot of people just assume that Arcturians means Arcturians and they're all the same, but I don't know why I channel the Arcturians. I channel, like, I'm sure my future self or past self or some self is a part of that collective. And that's why, but I just decided one day, and this is after having channeled already for 6 years, that I wanted to connect to Arcturians. So it wasn't hard for me. It's not hard for me to channel any beings or collectives now that are higher dimensional. If you ask me to channel your dead aunt, I might have a harder time. I would have a harder time doing that. I'm sure I would. But with these beings, because I don't really consider myself to be a medium. I think that's a totally different skill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between the Arcturian and the Palladian energy when you channel them?
not big. It's not a big difference. It's noticeable, but it's like, you know, if you enjoy two very, like, if you enjoy pumpkin pie, but you also enjoy pecan pie, and you're like, you know, they both taste good, they're both sweet, you know, they have a slightly different texture, but it's, when I channel them, initially I can hear and tell that there's a difference. Like, oh, there's like a slight difference when the Palladians come in than when the Arcturians come in. Once I start channeling for them for a while, like if I'm doing a 3-hour Q&A, which I do every Thursday night, it all starts to feel like the same, like the creators, like the Hathors, like archangels mixed in there, Yeshua, Buddha. And I think that's because when you work with these different groups and beings, you really start to become them. And also, they're not just going to hang back if they know something's going on. They're not just going to sit in the background and say, well, we'll just observe. They're going to like want to braid themselves in to the channeling that's happening. So then it gets more incestuous and harder to like, you know, say, okay, one at a time. But I don't mind that. You know, I like that. I feel so supported when I'm channeling by all the different beings that I work with.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what is their main message for us?
Their main message is you've got to really take care of your own house. You know, you've got to tend to your own garden. So they're not political. They're not talking about how you should be marching in Washington or wherever, you know, London, wherever. They're more about like, well, they're also telling us that we do have a lot of help coming from above and coming from around us, like all the different star systems and all the different beings. They're all helping, but they help energetically. They don't intervene, they don't interfere. It's more like you have the support right now with these energies to connect more, to get more heart-centered, to be more of your source energy self, your higher self. These activations are available to those of you who open up to them. That's part of the daily messages that I bring through, is like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what these energies will be about this month. But if they're speaking in a more with more of like a timeless type of message to us, it's always about, look, this is why you're there. This is what you're there to do. You're there to ascend. You're there to help others ascend. The only way to do that is to take care of what's going on inside of you and to focus on what's going on inside of you and to raise your vibration and do the things that bring you joy, because then you're going to be more receptive to these energies that are coming through and coming in. And, you know, if you're on the internet, you know, Googling Jeffrey Epstein, you know, then you're probably in a lower vibration. And you're not, and you might think that you're like the spiritual warrior that humanity needs. But if you go on Facebook or you go on the internet right now, it's this minefield of misinformation and, you know, things that just blatantly aren't true, and people trying to connect dots, and a lot of the people's insanity, you know, and their fears and their anger and all of that's coming out. And so there's a lot of these movements right now that are not really what we need. because what people need to do is to learn how to process their own emotions and to forgive and have compassion, and not just share hashtags and not just share videos. Like, people send me stuff all the time, and I'll look at it and I'll just feel terrible, and I'll know it's not true, and I'll just think to myself, I really wish this person didn't believe this. But I don't want to argue with people about their beliefs, and I don't have time to, I don't have the energy to anyway. So I just keep doing what I'm doing, which is like more, I think, in the light than trying to like sort through the darkness and try to determine who's a bad person, you know, which is, I see on the internet now constantly. And it's really, I used to love Facebook. I met my wife on Facebook.
Wow.
Now I'm scared of what I'm going to see, because I know it's going to trigger me. And I unfriend a lot of people. I don't argue. I'm just like, well, if that's how that person feels, then I have no reason to have them on my friends list, you know? And there's so much manipulation going on right now too, to try to get people to vote a certain way. And it's really scary and really sad. And I think about it a lot, and I wish I didn't think about what's going on as much as I do, because I have a beautiful life and beautiful family. And but it does bother me to see how much people are being manipulated and being told to look outside of themselves constantly. And no one is posting like, oh, I realized today that I was triggered, and that I needed to go like out into nature and do some breathing to move through this this feeling that I had and get into a higher vibration. You never see a post like that, you know?
It's rare, yeah.
Yeah, not by a person, I'm saying not by a person who's posting about Epstein, QAnon, Trump, Gates, Fauci, all these people that are being demonized or made into heroes. And, you know, you don't see the awareness in those. It's all the, like, I'm pointing my finger because I've drawn lines with red yarn on a bulletin board in my house, and I see all these connections. Yeah. And that, you know, makes me just want to be more in my space, in my present, in my life, because I see the manipulation, and I see how many people are just getting fooled into thinking things and supporting people that they really have shown no evidence that they deserve their support, and other people are being demonized who are just like doing their job, you know. Yeah. Or just trying to help, and it's sad, you know. I just which is why I feel more than ever in my years as a channel that what I do is needed, and it's good, and there needs to be the perspective. And I only have like one friend on Facebook that I ever see posting things that resonate with me, and it turns out that she's also the person that is my mentor and that I used to go to for channeling all the time. She channeled for me for like over 2 years every week. So most of it though is like really disheartening, and I'm very sad about the state of our spiritual community right now. So
you would suggest meditation, channeling, or going out into nature?
Yeah, shut off your devices. Right. Like stop looking for the next new conspiracy and go and focus on what's going on within, like the coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you think of it is or isn't. It's triggering people and getting people to have to face things. And I think that the isolation, my mom right now is very unhappy that she can't go and visit, and she can't come here and see her granddaughter. And, you know, she could, but she'd have to like sit in the house for 2 weeks, and then, you know, and then she'd be okay to be here. And then Florida's a state that's you know, having the surges, and that's where she lives. So so there's a lot of the people just needing to face what's coming up in them and face what's in themselves to be faced. And instead of that, people are just looking outside themselves, so I think that the digital age, in a lot of ways, information age that we're in, it's very helpful, but it also has that potential to be this gigantic vortex that sucks people into it, and then that's all they're doing is, you know, watching Netflix and YouTube and Googling things, and not, you know, there's no, even if you're quarantined, unless you live in a city where there's nowhere to go, I mean, people could just get outside, you know, and just, most people have access to a patch of grass, a tree, something that they could go connect with that's real and that's high vibrational, and that they can meditate under, and that they can feel, you know, they can feel the earth energies, feel the sun and what the sun's offering us. And that's what people, I think, need more of, and they need less internet, less of the stimulation, because it's all very mind oriented. You know, it's like the mind is up here and is focusing on things that are, you know, interesting or, you know, entertaining, but then people really need to be down here in their hearts, which is what you get when you connect with your pet or nature or a cloud in the sky, you know, or a tree or something that they can connect with, that will get them more heart-centered, get them more focused on what they're feeling and not what they're thinking and what they're theorizing and what they're speculating about what's going to happen next. So that's another thing in the spiritual community that's like rampant, is all the predictions,
right,
about what's going to happen. And so people will just go down those rabbit holes too, instead of like realizing, and this is another thing that the Arcturians are always trying to empower people into, is realizing that they create their reality, that there's not one set future that we're all hurtling towards right now. There's all these timelines that are opening up that we help co-create through the living of our lives. So that's what people need to be focused on, is like choosing, creating, vibrating in harmony with what they want, instead of just saying, well, this is what so-and-so says and I trust so-and-so, you know. Because a lot of like, even good teachers, even well-meaning, I mean, I've even heard Deepak Chopra in an interview say, who was my very first spiritual teacher, that he thinks we're all doomed, you know, like we've ruined the planet, you know, we're so far from where we need to be right now. He's lost hope in humanity.
Really?
I think it was on Conan O'Brien's podcast. I'm pretty sure that's where I heard him say that he was like really, really down about humankind and what we were moving towards. So even someone with a very positive, like,
yeah,
you know, a message that, and he's been doing it for probably 40 years. But then there's a lot of the others out there who do say some good things, but then also have the negative predictions, you know, about cataclysmic events and things that are going to happen politically and economically. And it's just like over and over and over again, we're just being fed predictions that people then just glom onto and say, well, that must be what's going to happen, rather than saying, well, how do I feel about this? What is this triggering within me? What can I do about how I feel about it? And knowing that how you feel determines your reality is so important. And it's like not the message that is most prevalent in our world right now. So you know, we definitely need more of the teachings that are coming through the Arcturians and others that are empowering us and telling us, hey, you guys create this. It's not happening outside of you in, you know, some laboratory where it's all being sorted out.
Right. That's great. So can we bring them in? I
Yeah.
have a few questions.
How is my sound? Because I hear a lot of construction. Do you hear that?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear you well.
All right. Well, the Arcturian Council. Well, pleased to know. Hello.
Hello, hi. Thanks for being here.
Yes, it is an absolute pleasure.
Awesome. So one of my first questions for you guys is, can you elaborate a little bit on our planet's history and why there seems to be such a big interest among extraterrestrials and dimensionals at this time?
Yes.
Yes.
Earth had a natural evolutionary process that people like Charles Darwin have talked about. And then you also had intervention. You had some planting of seeds by extraterrestrial beings from all across the universe, where different experiments have taken place on planet Earth, where different beings have been brought in to see if they could cohabitate, see if there could be harmony struck between all of these different beings that represent different star systems and represent different species of extraterrestrials. And you've had interventions as well in terms of how your DNA has been structured and restructured, and how much consciousness you could have in a human physical body. And so at some point, there was a realization that all of this intervention was interference. It was not allowing for humankind to evolve at that natural pace that you would have otherwise if left to your own devices. And so in recent millennia, there has been more of a standoffish type approach where ETs, of course, do come to your world still and do occasionally crash a ship that then gets recovered, and that is an unintentional type of interference as you get more technology than the average person has in their house. But for the most part, there is a non-interference policy now that is enforced by benevolent extraterrestrial groups because they want you to realize who you really are. They want you to feel more empowered and to not look always to the skies for help, for the type of intervention that a lot of people would like to see on your world right now, because you are in a place where you could use some technology that would be cleaner and that would eliminate a lot of the vehicles that are being used and the factories that are burning coal and using fossil fuels to power themselves. And so it is a time when there's a lot of interest because there is a desire to help without interfering, and physical ETs and non-physical groups like ourselves are seeking the different ways that we can be of service and be of assistance without crossing that line, and to see how humanity is going to do it, because we know that you are going to ascend. We know that you are all going to come into a place of being able to live harmoniously there on Earth. And we want to see how you're going to do it.
Great. So it brings me to my next question. How do we concretely bring into our awareness fifth dimensional or higher dimensional templates and blueprints or ideas into our consciousness in order to change the way we do things?
Well, meditation is a big way that you open yourself up to these things. Consciously sitting and opening yourself up to them, telling the universe that you're ready, you're willing, you're open to receive all that you can at this time, all that will serve you, and then just opening your arms out wide, palms facing up, and feeling for what you can tune into energetically. It also comes from times when you are in joy, times when you're just off living the life that you want to be living, doing the things that you want to be doing. As you and Daniel were talking about, connecting with pets, with animals, with earth, with nature, with those things that put you into a higher vibrational state. Naturally, that then opens you up because you're not in tension, you're not in resistance, and you're the ideal vessel for letting in what is available to you.
Do we go about learning about our life mission or soul contract or purpose in this life in the same fashion?
Yes. You go about finding your place in the human collective by simply listening to what is going on inside of you and following what feels right to you. So if doing something feels very natural, very in the flow, feels very good as you move towards it, then you are meant to move towards that. Because again, anything that puts you in that higher vibrational state opens you up, makes you a vessel for these fifth dimensional templates, blueprints, energies, consciousness, and then you spread it naturally around wherever you go. So finding your place means sifting through all the various options that you have in front of you and feeling into what resonates, and then just continuing down that path, knowing that you'll always get what you need as you do.
So how can I trust that more, that following, for example, like what I've heard Bashar say, following my highest excitement to the best of my ability, with no insistence on a specific outcome? How can I trust that that will bring me the money that I need to pay my mortgage or take care of my kids and so on?
Well, the good news is that you can do both. You don't follow that excitement 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so if you have a form of income that is paying your mortgage and is allowing you to take care of those who need you to take care of them, then there's no need for you to quit that and say, I need all the time that I could possibly devote to this passion project of mine. You have free time, you have downtime, you have recreational time where you get to put your attention on what excites you and then let that become something that ultimately you can devote more and more time to as you transition perhaps into a new career because of opportunities that float into your awareness because you are on that higher vibrational track, versus just saying, well, I can't do that because I've got this job, and I can't quit my job because I've got this mortgage, and staying in that place of I can't. Just do what you can. That's the to the best of your ability part of that teaching.
Good. I understand that, well, I've heard that we have a deep connection to everything, like everything is one, and we're all this one same thing vibrating at different frequencies. And so I understand that my actions, for example, affect my partner and my child or the people that surround me. How can I feel more of the deep connection of when I'm meditating and I'm in a higher state of consciousness, that it's also elevating like extraterrestrials or other energetic beings around me?
Well, you get to set your intention for everything that you do, including meditation. If you want to meditate with that specific intention, then you set that intention for your meditation. You perhaps focus on something, focus on a mantra, focus on whatever gets you to feel more connected to extraterrestrial consciousness, and then you just sit and breathe and maintain that focus, maintain that intention.
And can you elaborate a little bit on the structure of the universe? For example, the different dimensions, perhaps like from source down to, I'm not sure, angels, and then other energetic beings down to the physical 3D manifestation where we currently are.
Yes, source is all that is. Source is everything. And this universe, our universe, the universe that we share together, was created by a thought that Source had. And Source has had many thoughts, and all of those thoughts now exist as universes. So in this thought or dream, if you want to call it that, of Source, we are in a universe of polarity, a universe of duality. We are also in a universe of free will, which means you have the dark and you have the light and you have the being or the collective that then gets to choose whether they're going to play in the dark or play in the light. Now, as you go up and up and up dimensionally, in our way of breaking things down here, we say there are 12 dimensions in this universe. And the 13th dimension would be the source energy dimension, but it would just be the source energy dimension of this universe. And then you keep going and going and going to eventually get back to the original dimension of source, which of course will be more expanded. It'll be a bigger version of source when we all re-emerge into that dimension. But for now, your higher dimensions, dimensions 9 through 12, they're non-physical dimensions. Those dimensions are where beings don't have physical bodies and congregate together as collectives, so you don't have even a sense of individuality. Even when you talk about an archangel, you talk about an ascended master, they are collectives. They are not individuals, even though you have assigned to them individual names. Like Archangel Michael. Archangel Michael is a collective. All the archangels are collectives. Now, the 8th dimension is where you transition. If you're descending, you transition from non-physical to physical. If you're ascending, then you transition in that 8th dimension from physical to non-physical. In the physical dimensions, you have the 7th, which is the highest physical dimension, which you can at times know yourself as a non-physical being when you get into the upper echelons of that dimension. So each dimension also has these different levels to it. It's a vibrational range. It's a range of frequencies that you can be in. So you know this to be true. As you are in the 4th dimension now, you know that at times you're vibrating at a higher frequency, and at times you're vibrating at a lower frequency, even though you're still in the same dimension. So that doesn't change once you ascend to 5D. Even the 5th dimension will have different levels, different layers to it, different ways of knowing yourself and different ways of exploring creation. And that is as it is always going to be, because as you explore creation, you create more of creation. You become more of source. You expand more into who you really are, and you create more for source to then explore itself.
I channeled what I think is an entity called Anna from the 8th dimension, and she's a Palladian. But now you're telling me, I guess maybe I got it wrong, that the 8th dimension is only a transitional dimension?
It's also still populated for a short amount of time for those beings. So they're not just passing through in a millisecond, they are spending some time there transitioning. And so there are beings there and there are collectives there that are in that transitional phase.
Okay.
Just as the 4th dimension is transitional, but you're still in it right now.
I heard also that the 4th dimension for us, 3D, was our astral plane, or the place we go when we dream.
When you shift into the astral, you are a non-physical soul. So you basically take your consciousness and your soul and you go wherever you want. You can stay in the 4th and you can go to a place that needs a lot of help on Earth, or you can go to the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, etc. You can keep going wherever you want to go because you have that freedom from being dissociated from your physical body and without the limitations that are placed on you when you're in your physical body.
And how do I go about trusting my extrasensory perceptions more without getting outside validation, for example? Like I channeled an entity that I named Anna from a Palladian from the 8th dimension. How can I know if that's quote unquote real, or if it's real to me, it's real enough?
Yes, if it resonates, that's all that matters. Even if she turns out to be, as you continue to connect with her, 7th dimensional, then you might say, well, I just got that little bit of it off and it's okay. And she didn't want to correct me because she wanted me to be able to sense for myself whether all the bits and pieces of information that I were getting were being accurately translated by me. So ultimately, the universe will give you confirmation, but the first way that you can tell whether something is true or not is by how you feel, and that's what you want to rely on.
Okay. Like you mentioned at the beginning, we all have extraterrestrial DNA.
Yes.
My question is do I have a quote a normal amount of extraterrestrial DNA passed down through my lineage, or have I been tampered with either during gestation before I was born or right after I was born? Or in other words, have I been abducted?
Yes, yes. You
Really?
do have more than the average human, and it is because of the experimenting that has been done on you. Now, we said earlier that this interference and this type of thing has no longer been a part of your earth plane of existence. And what we meant when we said that was that it's not happening on the large scale that it once was. And just like you have rules there on Earth and you have exceptions to rules, there are exceptions made. So for the hybridization program that you were a part of, that created the hybrid children, the exception there was that it wasn't really about you. It wasn't really about interfering with you and your development so much as it was about saving an entire species of beings, the beings known as the Zetas. They needed help. That help was given with your free will. A lot of people will take issue with that and say, I didn't give my free consent. I didn't use my free will to give consent, but that consent was given prior to you being born into that physical body.
Right.
So it was by agreement that you allowed yourself to be experimented on to save an entire species of beings. And the result, the hybrid children, is going to help humanity in building that bridge between human and extraterrestrial consciousness and humans and extraterrestrials physically.
So I have
They already are helping. It already is helping.
Right. So I have hybrid children.
Yes.
Do you know how many?
17.
17. And how do I've been very good?
Very busy.
How do I connect with them?
In meditation, that's another intention that you can set for meditation when you are channeling as well. And you can also trust that they are going to connect with you. As you drift off to sleep and you do that astral traveling, you can also set that intention that you're going to meet up with one or more of your hybrid children and remember what it was that transpired between you.
So there was a morning a few months ago, I was sort of drowsy, in and out of a dream state. Yes. And I felt like I was going to access some information, something important. And then I felt like sort of an electric circuit noise between like both my ears, kind of like a and then so I woke up abruptly and I forgot about everything. Can you tell me a little bit what that's about?
Well, you forgot because it was something that was happening to you more so than something that you needed to remember. You were getting an upgrade to your third eye chakra at that time. And the mechanics of the upgrade, that's not something you need to know about or remember, but that's what was happening, and that's what you were sensing was afoot.
Afoot?
You were sensing it was happening.
Okay. There's 3 minutes left to our hour, so I'll let Daniel come back, I guess. Thank you so much for answering my questions. It was quite fun.
Yay!
I look forward to connecting with you in my dreams and meditations.
Very good. We are always available. We are the Arcturian Council, and we have enjoyed connecting with you.
That was great.
Yeah.
That was really great.
Oh, good.
I have one last question for you.
Okay. Oh, by the way, I also channeled an 8th dimensional Pleiadian group once.
Really? Okay. Okay. Because I got validation from her name, because her name was given to me like capital A and capital A. Mm-hmm. And it was the two A's at the end was her and me, or like me connecting to her, and then the two N's were sort of like the wavelengths. She described her name like that. And I was channeling for a friend, and I told her about it, and because I wanted to channel more who this entity was, and I felt like if I channeled with somebody else, like she was going to pull it out of me better. Yeah. And next thing you know, she messengers me on Facebook the picture of a beer that she had bought a few days prior, and it was the name Anna, but written A, capital A, and capital A. So yeah. I
got a similar type of confirmation where it was not the way you would expect to get it for the name the creators, because it took me 1.5 years to give them that name after I started channeling them. And I got it in an automatic writing exercise, and then I was buying Legos at the time on eBay. I would just go on eBay and I'd buy bulk used Legos from people, because that's how I had them when I was a kid. I didn't have like, here's a set for Star Wars X-Wing fighter, and here's a set for a castle. I just had all the loose pieces, and that's what I wanted. But so I just would always type in Legos on eBay. And I bought maybe 3 or 4 of these bulks, sets of, people just send them in a big plastic bag. And then I typed it in like the same day that I had gotten the name the creators, and all the results came up, and I'm scrolling and I keep seeing the creator. Like there's a type of Lego set called the creator. So it wasn't the creators, but it was close enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had gotten that like outside validation, and so the 8th dimension, it's still good. But when you said it was a transitory dimension, I wasn't sure anymore. So, but it's all
Yeah, I
good.
wonder, I bet she must be ascending into non-physical.
The way I see it, like I don't really see her face, although she's kind of like, she's luminescent, and I see sort of a triangle with like 2 or 3 other people on her side. So it's kind of a collective
They're
also that I
collective already, yeah.
yeah. So I kind of see a collective already. And I said, you know, and she told me that she basically, with our permission, she can move into anything physical, like a tree or an animal or other human beings. And so she experiences different, you know, she evolves her consciousness by sort of peeking into different beings and stuff. So
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, that's
cool.
what I got. Yeah. So just my last question to you is, how do you consolidate your, because I know you have a little girl, and
right.
yeah, and I have a little girl too. And so how do you consolidate like your family time with your business, with your spiritual business?
Well, I keep hoping that I can have more time to spend with my family. But we live on Maui, we eat all organic. I mean, everything's so expensive.
Okay.
The mortgage and all the baby stuff now that we have to get, and that all has to be organic too. So it's like, it means that I have to work more, which means I have to like, I don't know that I do the best job of balancing that, because ultimately I would love to have more time to spend with her, and I'm hoping that eventually I'll be able to cut back another day and just have like a 4-day work week. But it's definitely the biggest challenge in my life right now.
Cool. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for your time. I really appreciated it, and I had a great time. I hope it was good for you too.
yeah, I loved it.
Awesome. Well, have a great night, and
Okay.
yeah, well,
See ya.
maybe we'll talk again some other time.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.